Welcome back, y'all. This is Let's Talk About, and today's game is Sonic Adventure. Right now I am playing on the PC, you might not be able to tell. I am using what the community is calling Better Sonic Adventure Deluxe, which is a modification for Sonic Adventure Deluxe for the PC, the most recent Steam release. That kind of, what do I call it? It kind of, restores some of the, well, specifically this is the Dreamcast mod that restores a lot of the Dreamcast style graphics, and also there's a lot of things like the lighting engine got changed, and throughout the different ports they kind of, slowly degraded an already kind of a game with like a lot of rough edges. Like it made the lighting look worse and added a whole bunch of different bugs and things like that. And just as a preference thing, like a lot of people don't like the new Sonic Adventure updated models and things like that. So, you know, it gives you the option to play it without them. There is also the option to play in HD and with all the different modern resolutions and widescreen and all that. But I'm playing in a 4x3 as God and Sega intended, because I respect artistic intent. Thank you very much. I'm kidding. I mean, like, it's Sonic Adventure. Play it whatever way you want at this point. But like, I don't know. Speaking of like artistic intent and art and all that kind of stuff, I also kind of wanted to talk about, I guess this is really self-indulgent. The language we use around video games and the way we talk about them. See, a lot of people who like follow me on Twitter and stuff will kind of like already understand my thoughts in this general area of like discussion, but a lot of the talk around video games is very consumerist. Like the culture of video games itself is very consumerist, and the whole identity of people who play video games is very largely wrapped up in consumerist politics, ideology, very inseparable from capitalism and the things that made it. Kind of by design and by marketing, because that's what works, and kind of just intrinsically because it's a very tech-centric medium that kind of gets attached to technology and technological industries.
You know nothing, fool. It's
So it
the god of destruction.
I love that line, Reed. Yeah, so it gets stuck with a lot of technological, like Silicon Valley ideology, things like that. And so like the way we talk about them is very much subsumed in this idea of a consumerist identity, and we talk about things being good and bad in video games more as like a set of values of how they add to our value as a consumer, rather than kind of like artistically what they intend or the artistic effects they have, which is really frustrating for me because like well, first of all, I'm one of those annoying art school dropout people. Like I legitimately went to art school for a little bit. I can't tell you what I learned there besides that art school is really expensive and is full of people who have not a lot of talent but have a lot of wealth, which is like a different discussion. But I did learn a lot of like language around art, which kind of it helps a lot. Like knowing art history and knowing, um, whoops, knowing how to talk about art helps describe so much and gives kind of like a common language for everything. And there's a lot of, I would say there's a lot of problems with art and kind of like elitism and inaccessibility within the language itself and things like that, and kind of the ways we talk and think about art, especially if you're talking about like fine art stuff, as opposed to like more pop medium. But talking about them with artistic terms really helps ground them in like I don't know, hundreds, thousands of years of art history that already exists, and gives context to what things are doing and relates them to how they interact with like other things and contextualizes them in that. And I just think it's really disappointing that the way that we talk about video games has largely been kind of sucked into terms like, oh shit, oh fuck, not that, but got sucked into things like how we talk about like I don't know, immersion or value, replay value, things like that, instead of, hey, what's this space doing? What are these things? What kind of emotional effects are they achieving? And things like that. We kind of just think of things as a set of functions, and how they relate, or hey, does this game do this function better than another game, and things like that. So like words like immersion are very much wrapped in that same kind of idea, like this focus on like a verisimilitude, like a kind of a realization of real world and realism, and ability to kind of keep you absorbed in the thing. And we also like just like directly related to the value, like how realistic and how immersive something is how good a game is, and therefore how valuable it is to us as a consumer. I've been thinking about this for a long time, but I thought about it like tonight because I was watching a video from somebody who does a lot of videos on like video game animation stuff. Oh god, I love some of these really weird expressions. And like something that they're otherwise like pretty straightforward videos that just talk about cool things of animation and video games, but you can tell this person has like a real passion for video games, in like, a straightforward, endearing way, but also in like they're very absorbed into the philosophy of quote unquote being a gamer or gamers, like and I could tell because the way they describe things is, despite them being they're an actual animator, so they obviously, and you can tell because the way they demonstrate art techniques uses animations and stuff that are really helpful, and I really enjoy stuff like that. But all their thoughts on games and the way they speak about the effects that animation has on a video game was like so wrapped up in this like gamer speak and like gamer terms that it like really, and like kind of like the ideology of it that really it really rubs me the wrong way. Like it makes it hard to enjoy, and I think also it kind of worsens their points. Like, to give you an example, like I was watching, I think it's a recent video of theirs on I'm not gonna link the video because I don't really want like people to go watch it and be like, oh my god, this is so bad, or have any weird reactions to them or something. So it's not really as important as like, I don't know, maybe it's kind of egotistical to say it's not their video's not really as important as what I have to say about it, but I don't think it will help. I mean, yeah, I don't know. It was a video anyway. It was a video about parallax scrolling, which is, if you don't know what parallax scrolling, it's basically the use of multiple background layers moving at different speeds to simulate distance. So it's kind of like the video game equivalent of and they bring this up in the video, like the traditional 2D animation use of like multiple backgrounds and stuff. So you know, you can create a foreground and stuff, and you can they would literally put them on plates, animation plates that are different distances away to achieve the effect. So just naturally, when they like did a panning shot or something, you could get the illusion of depth from like a 2D image. And that's a similar thing in video games where they just scroll the backgrounds and stuff at different speeds, or even the foregrounds at different speeds to give that like 3D effect. And it's a really cool effect, and they do legitimately make some cool they do illustrate some cool uses of it, and a lot of like awesome ways that it can be applied to achieve an effect. And coincidentally, okay, maybe I will just link this video. Coincidentally, I do talk a lot about Sonic games and how those achieve 3D effects. And you know, it's cool because you get to notice things that, in different details, you get a different perspective on it. But they keep talking about how parallax scrolling is cool because it gives a bigger sense of space, which adds to our immersion and therefore our value as players and consumers. Like, that's pretty much the sentence they say, and they keep coming back to this idea of immersion and how good it is for us as gamers. And I'm like, like it's like embarrassing and painful to hear something that's like been around for multiple years, and which they like get really close to relating to and contextualizing like really well in the exact same video, be turned around and being like, yeah, it's good because it's good for gamers. Parallax scrolling, it's good for gamers. TM, like, oh fuck, jeez, like, oh Christ, like what of and it's not like, I mean, I feel like upset because of the specific instance, but it's not like intrinsic to this one person or the way they talk. It's just like recognizing that this is the language that we describe games with. Maybe it's hard to hear this dialogue and listen to me talk at the same time. I just realized it's embarrassing to hear this fucking gamer language. I guess I'm myself, losing my language myself. Yeah, it's just like this gamer language, like, take over, like, otherwise interesting and informative things, and like just weaken them in like a lot of ways. Like, this person is an animator, and they, I would assume, understand like the language of art and art critique and things like that, and they could absolutely be using like those terms to kind of contextualize video games in, you know, this rich history of animation, and kind of describe the way that both animation and video games use them to create a space. And they do that for like a little bit, and then they just kind of get sidetracked. And like, it sucks to see even people who like have a background in art describe video games in this like weird exceptionalist way, where they like treat it as like some weird different art form, and not like an amalgamation of like so many different mediums and techniques and things that we've been doing for years and are interesting in their own right because of how they use them. Like, I don't know. Like you could talk about parallax scrolling, for instance. Like, a about how it affects depth, how it can give like a texture to a space, create the illusion of 3D, but also intentionally draw attention to the construction as a 2D thing. And I mean, like, just using that video again, like, one of the things they bring up is Shinobi 3 and how it uses some of its background layers to kind of set up different storytelling bits, like in the background, because of the way. So how it works with parallax scrolling is that things that are farther away scroll slower, and therefore they kind of draw your attention to them and kind of like help you see, I guess, past the faster moving ones, and faster moving layers to like create, that, which helps create that sense of 3D. And then so Shinobi 3 specifically uses this to set up things in the background that you need to watch out for. Like, there's a level where enemies attack you from the background, or you can see like ninjas jumping off from like one of those ninja kites to come down and get you before they appear in the foreground to attack you, so you can kind of just watch that. And ooh, that's like a kind of cool specific example of how that 3D space, how they create that connection between the background and the foreground, right? Like, there's an explicit connection there. So it's not only just a background layer, but it is the same plane. It is the same space. You're connected between them, and ostensibly your character could go there if they needed to, but they don't. So they're currently where they need to be. That kind of thing. It gives kind of like an expansiveness to a lot of flat images. Like, that's a lot of what we do with media in motion, is creating the sense of space and movement with what is just a series of flashing still images, right? And I don't know, I guess I would have liked to have heard more of like how this works compared to like traditional animation, things like that, and kind of you can talk about like the way other media evoke depth and stuff like that. Like, if you've ever seen like an oil painting in person, there's a different effect you get because of you can physically see the paint on the canvas, which like gives it a different depth. And like some paintings intentionally like layer oil paint and acrylic really thick, and so like the lighting of the room and stuff will add to that effect. And if you've ever seen like a cheap canvas print, which is basically just like, sometimes they get like I don't know, like some decorative flowers or something and just print them on canvas rather than like actual paintings. And so it's like a pretty flat image. And then sometimes, and then on some other cheap ones, they'll, I think I just went backwards, right? Ooh, nice car. Yeah. They'll have somebody, I'm assuming somebody, either hand or machine, paints like a little bit of, probably acrylic, I'm assuming, because oil takes a long time to set. They paint a couple dabs on like parts of the image to kind of like give that pop.
Now you've got light speed shoes.
And
press and hold the action button to store up power.
kind of like give that illusion of it being painted. Like, they just add that little bit of texture that they obviously can't. Yeah, I got it. That little bit of texture that obviously you can't get because you printed it. What's it, this?
Use the light dash
Christ.
to run along the paths of rings. Hold the action button and let go when you have enough power.
There we go. Man, this lighting looks way better than the regular Sonic Adventure. Like, some of these environments are actually a lot moodier than I remember them, because I've been playing only, like, I don't know, I guess the weirdly compromised ports. Yeah, like, I don't know. I don't want to, like, be, like, such a bummer about this one particular person. Because, like, you know, it's hard. It's hard to make a video. And it's hard to talk about it coherently. But I feel like we could have a lot more coherent and, like, useful. I don't know, useful. I don't want to, like, I don't want the value to be, I don't want to make that same mistake of judging, like, judging value as far as, like, productivity and, like, what it adds as, like, a product, you know. But we could have, like, I guess, like, a less limited conversation if we talked about things, you know, with how they work in art history. This part's really fucking boring. I'm sorry about this. You know, it's cool to relate things. It's cool to talk about video games as an artistic medium. And I think a lot of people want that legitimacy of video games as an artistic medium without really treating it as art, without, like, subjecting it to the same critique that art has, you know, sustained. And oh, what does that mean? Oh, okay, cool. Sustained and, like, received through, you know, centuries, I guess. And without, like, learning anything from artistic techniques that existed forever. You know, we can talk about surrealism and impressionism and the ways those paintings and movements attempted things philosophically, and, like, relate them to, you know, how specific things kind of achieve a similar effect. Like, you can talk about like, one of the I like the impressionism thing specifically just because we're kind of getting a real reevaluation of stuff like the PlayStation 1 and N64 aesthetics, because it's been long enough that people are into those again, as opposed to just seeing them as, like, limited forms of early 3D or whatever, right? That's cool. That, you know, have been usurped by the high definition technology we have there, because it's like, I wouldn't say it philosophically fits into what Impressionism was attempting, but it achieves sort of, like, a similar effect, in that you can, when you're, like, a little vaguer with the way you render things, you can kind of evoke more, oh man, I almost said visceral for a second, speaking of fucking game speak. More like raw emotions, I guess. You can kind of get, like, the raw emotional content of a scene without needing, like, all the details of it. Like, just those, I forgot who does them. Those paintings of, like, the train stations with all the people. And, like, you kind of get the motion of the people and the kind of mood around it without needing the, you know, you don't need to see every particular person's face to kind of get the idea of the scene, right? It's, like, not as important. And it's also, like, you can also, it's like the same thing as when you do, like, a gesture drawing. You can get their motion and their attitude, their expression through a couple lines rather than through, you know, have a highly detailed photorealistic face, like Imagine. Things like that. And Yeah, and then like stuff like that is specifically why I think talking about it within art history, it kind of just opens up our imagination more. When we use this like consumerist, capitalistic way of thinking about video games, like this, like they're fucking vacuum cleaners or some shit. Like we think of them as really limited, and we only think of them as the things they have done. Like, for example, you're not going to use like a vacuum cleaner to. You're not going to think about like the emotional content a vacuum cleaner can inspire in you or whatever, right? Until like fucking one day a vacuum cleaner does that, and you're like, oh shit, video like vacuum cleaners are art now. We should add emotion to all our vacuum cleaners. Like that's what it sounds like when people talk about video games sometimes. Like they're just like a combination of like different functions and objects that like performs a different function or object, like function or purpose. And it's like why we keep limiting ourselves to like really, I mean it's not why, like there's lots of reasons why, like it's complicated, but it's part of the reasons we have like no fucking imagination for what video games are is because we have a very limited idea of what to look at. Like the people who make video games, they don't have time to play video games, so they're building video games based on ideas of how games were like 5 years ago when they started development, you know. And then, which like I have some sympathy for, but also like lots of game designers, like lots of the really good game designers will tell you the way to become a better game designers to like increase your imagination by not fucking just only playing games and caring about games. Like watch a film, go outside, have life experiences, and like draw upon those things. And I think part of those things is you know, having some sense of art history and context for that kind of stuff. Oh, I just noticed that the activate Windows thing had just popped up here. Which is really good. I am using a second computer that my friend gave me, which I have not activated Windows on because I can only activate it on my main PC. So I guess that's gonna be there for the rest of the video. That's just fine. I don't, like, fucking, come on. We know, like, who pays for Windows? You get the copy of Windows that comes with your PC, and if you're lucky, you get a CD key that you can use until the next version comes out on your other computers. Until they, like, lock it to your hardware, some nightmare scenario where they're probably gonna do that in the future. Like, you know what? Fuck it. Like, it's fine. I mean, I'm gonna probably try to activate that shit just so if I ever use this computer for recordings again, it doesn't have to be there. Because it is distracting. But, well, I don't know, whatever. But yeah, I would like to have us talk about art like it is art. And not this, like, nightmare laser tag or whatever that we've constructed video games as. Fuck, man, I'm just like, like, y'all, I'm fucking, I just cannot get over describing something as, like, straightforward, I guess not straightforward, but, like, something as, like, just, like, parallax scrolling is good because it adds to our immersion, like, Christ. And, like, that's, like, every video game video. That's, like, why I find it really difficult to watch a lot of video game analysis videos. Because they talk about everything in the way that, I don't know, like, fundamentally, the way that we talk about video games critically often isn't very different from the language that we use for, like, a GameFAQs post or whatever, right? Like, that's the same philosophical values that we're judging things by and judging their success by. And that's why, like, to wrap this shit around, that's why people don't like Sonic Adventure. I mean, okay, like, people love Sonic Adventure. And the people who love Sonic Adventure, like, too much. I'm saying this as somebody who likes Sonic Adventure. Right? But people don't like Sonic Adventure is not Mario 64. It is not. It's functional, yeah, but it's not polished. It's not the well-oiled machine Mario 64 is. It's not that deeply influential thing that everybody aspires to be. You know, if it was a vacuum cleaner, it would be like this really dope Y2K aesthetic vacuum cleaner that had like a lot of cool aesthetic shit on it. Oh, are you fucking me? I only need like 6 more rings. Fuck off. Yeah, it would be like this cool ass vacuum cleaner that does all this shit that people are like, why the fuck would you put a CD player in a vacuum cleaner, right? Like something like, it would be something like that. And like, nobody's gonna build another one like that because you shouldn't. But when you kind of like think about Sonic Adventure as like an art piece, and it's like weird disconnected spaces, but attempts to like create something like not cohesive, but the kind of is internally consistent. Like there's a lot of really cool things to appreciate about it and enjoy. But you know I don't know. Art requires lots of perspectives and lots of views and lots of context, and it doesn't. Well, I mean, I guess it doesn't require them. Like you can enjoy art on their own, but knowing those things, you know, it enhances your enjoyment of it. And I think that there's a lot of things about video games that we don't appreciate because we're too busy kind of trying to see which one of them is the best vacuum cleaner. That was kind of like, that turned into like a weird impromptu lecture. I don't know what brought that out, but like, you know, that's fine. I hope that's enjoyable. I hope you got something out of this, enjoyed it. I hope the sound mix is fine. And I hope I don't suddenly lose subscribers again for uploading a video. But fuck it. If that wasn't their thing, it wasn't their thing. Anyway, thanks for joining me again, y'all. Be good. And I'm gonna open up the comments for this one. Play nice. And I'll link that video in there if you want to see. It's fine. The video's fine. You probably will get more out of it than I will. Bye.